The sky burned red over New York. At first, people thought it was just another sunset, beautiful, strange, and harmless. The kind that made tourists stop on the bridge to take pictures. But then the light grew brighter. Too bright. The color shifted from crimson to a molten, fiery scar that split the clouds open. Moments later, the first shadow fell over the city. Something huge, black, metallic, and silent, drifted out of the clouds. It blotted out the sun like an eclipse. Then another followed. And another. Within minutes, hundreds of alien ships filled the sky. Each one shaped like a blade, edges glowing with cold blue light. Sirens screamed. Every screen, every phone, every radio across the planet flickered to the same broadcast. A tall, gray-skinned figure appeared, eyes burning like coals under a silver crown. His voice echoed through the airwaves, calm and absolute. "We are the Dravari, conquerors of 100 worlds. Your planet now belongs to us. Surrender, or die." The message lasted only 6 seconds. Then the feed cut out. Panic followed. In New York, people ran through the streets, screaming as the first bolts of plasma rained down from the clouds. Buildings exploded like sandcastles hit by waves. Cars lifted off the ground and melted into slag. The skyline vanished behind a wall of smoke and fire. The Dravari didn't fight like humans. They didn't need to. They hovered in their ships, raining death with mathematical precision. Every strike, every blast, every destroyed target had been calculated long before they even entered orbit. The Pentagon went dark. London fell within 3 hours. Tokyo within 4. It wasn't a war. It was an execution. From orbit, the Dravari fleet commander, High Warlord Zyreth, watched through a holographic display as Earth's defenses collapsed. His lipless mouth curled into something close to amusement. "Primitive species," he muttered. "Their weapons burn fuel. Their aircraft still rely on friction and air. How pathetic." Another officer approached. "Shall we begin the harvesting, my lord?" "Not yet," Zyreth replied. "Let them scream first. Let them know what it means to defy the Dravari dominion." On the surface, human soldiers fought hopelessly. Jets soared through the smoky sky, firing missiles that never reached their targets. Tanks rolled through burning streets only to be vaporized seconds later. The Dravari shields shimmered like liquid glass, untouchable, invincible. In one desperate counterattack, the U.S. Air Force fired every remaining ICBM they had. 80 nuclear warheads streaked into the heavens, a final, furious stand. The Dravari intercepted all 80. No explosion. No resistance. Just silence. The aliens laughed. By the second day, the world's governments had fallen silent. Communication networks were down. The internet was gone. Satellites had been turned to dust. And yet, deep beneath the mountains, someone was still transmitting. A faint human signal pulsed through the static, a single repeating phrase. "Do not surrender. Earth fights back." No one knew who sent it. Maybe a soldier. Maybe a civilian. But that signal, whispered through the ruins, was the first spark of defiance. Because the Dravari didn't know what kind of world they had invaded. They thought Earth was just another easy conquest, another world to burn and mine and enslave. They didn't know the storms, the oceans, the wildlife, the very environment, had shaped humanity into something hard, ruthless, and adaptive. They didn't know that humans evolved not in comfort, but in chaos. On the third night, while the Dravari celebrated aboard their floating fortresses, something strange happened. A squad of soldiers vanished near the ruins of Chicago. No plasma fire, no explosion, just silence. Drones sent to investigate also disappeared. Then, hours later, the Dravari patrols started finding their own kind, hanging from broken skyscrapers, bodies stripped of weapons, armor melted by heat far hotter than their scanners could read. Commander Zyreth stared at the reports in disbelief. "Explain this. Who is doing it?" No one answered. More incidents followed. Ambushes in the dark. Supply transports blown apart. Patrols missing. The humans were still fighting. But not with armies. Not with rules. They had gone to ground, using tunnels, saws, forests, anywhere the aliens wouldn't expect. They turned the ruins into traps, the cities into weapons. The Dravari soon realized that for every human they killed, 2 more appeared, angrier, smarter, deadlier. On the 4th day, the Dravari tried something new. They deployed orbital scanners to locate all human life signs. But the readings made no sense. The sensors showed millions of moving signatures across every continent. Zyreth hissed. Impossible. They cannot have this many survivors. The science officer hesitated. It is possible, the readings are from decoys. Heat sources. Fires. Reflections. They're confusing our scanners. Zyreth slammed his claws against the console. Primitive savages. But he was wrong. Human engineers had hacked into fallen alien drones and learned how their systems worked. They built fake heat signals, false radar images, holographic echoes. They made the Dravari blind. And every night, another alien ship exploded from within, sabotaged by humans who had learned how to breathe in the enemy's shadow. Somewhere deep underground, a hidden base came online. A lone figure, a woman in tattered armor, looked up at a screen showing the burning sky. Her voice was steady, calm, deadly. They think we're finished. She turned toward the camera, eyes hard as steel. Let's show them what happens when you invade a death world. And across the ruins, human eyes opened in the dark. Soldiers, scientists, scavengers, every survivor who could hold a weapon began to rise. They weren't just fighting for Earth anymore. They were fighting to remind the galaxy what kind of monsters a world like Earth could create. The Dravari had won the invasion. But the war hadn't even started. The world was silent. Smoke rose from the ruins of cities that once glowed with life. Skyscrapers lay shattered, their steel bones jutting toward the sky like the ribs of dead giants. Roads had become rivers of ash and molten glass. And yet, beneath all that destruction, something was moving. In the tunnels under Denver, the air was thick with dust and the smell of burnt metal. Dim lights flickered across makeshift walls covered in maps, notes, and radio wires. Men and women moved quietly, carrying weapons built from scraps and stolen alien tech. This was Project Revenant, humanity's last shadow army. They didn't wear uniforms anymore. There were no ranks, no medals, no speeches. Just survivors. A soldier known only as Captain Reyes stood before a flickering screen showing alien patrols moving across the ruins. His voice was low and cold. They think we're beaten. That's their mistake. We don't fight on their terms, we fight on ours. Around him, engineers worked beside mechanics, farmers beside hackers. A young woman, Dr. Lin, a scientist from the fallen NASA base, rewired a Dravari power cell into a homemade bomb. Sparks flew. She didn't flinch. You give me 20 of these, she said, and I can take out an entire landing craft. Reyes smiled faintly. Make 30. On the surface, the Dravari were tightening their grip. Massive hover fortresses floated above every major city, their searchlights cutting through the smoke like blades. They began building processing zones, camps where survivors were gathered, scanned, and shipped off-world. They called it pacification. But every convoy that left the camps started vanishing. A week later, the wreckage of one Dravari transport was found crashed in the mountains, its pilots dead, its cargo bay empty. Inside the cockpit, someone had carved 3 words into the metal with a knife. We are coming. The resistance spread like a virus. Hidden networks formed across continents, London Echo, Siberian Wolfpack, desert ghosts in the Middle East. They used scavenged radios, coded signals, even Morse light through shattered skyscraper windows to communicate. What began as survival became war. In the ruins of Paris, a group of scavengers ambushed a Dravari patrol using gasoline traps and makeshift explosives. They vanished into the catacombs before the aliens even realized what hit them. In Brazil, forest tribes struck back with guerrilla tactics older than civilization itself. Alien scanners couldn't track them through the dense jungle. And in Africa, miners used old drilling machines to build underground rail systems that could move hundreds of people safely beneath alien sensors. Humanity was breaking every rule of war, because they were fighting for extinction. One night, Reyes and his team launched their boldest attack yet. A massive Dravari supply crawler was moving through the wastelands near Nevada, guarded by aerial drones and ground escorts. Its purpose, Deliver plasma fuel cells to the alien fortress above Las Vegas. The humans had one chance to stop it. They waited until the crawler reached the canyon pass. Then, from above, a small device was dropped, a homemade EMP bomb built from a stolen alien power core. The explosion was silent, but its effect was deadly. The crawler stopped. Its engines died. The escorts froze. Then, the humans attacked. Gunfire echoed off the rocks. Explosives tore through armor. In less than 5 minutes, the alien convoy was gone. Reyes climbed onto the burning wreckage, lifted his radio, and transmitted on all Dravari frequencies. This is Earth. You took our cities. Now we'll take your lives. For the first time since the invasion, humans heard a sound they hadn't in weeks, cheering. But the Dravari were not fools. Commander Zyreth watched the transmission replayed in his command center, his claws tapping against the metal table. They adapt, he said softly. Faster than we expected. Shall we increase ground patrols? One officer asked. Zyreth shook his head. No. Increase punishment. Make them fear resistance. The next morning, the Dravari bombed 10 human safe zones simultaneously. Thousands died. It was supposed to break their will. It didn't. If anything, it hardened it. Weeks turned into months. The Dravari learned that every time they took territory, it cost them more soldiers. Every outpost they built was destroyed within days. The resistance had turned Earth into a weapon. The forests burned them. The cities trapped them. The night terrified them. Because in the dark, humans moved unseen, silent, cold, and patient. One Dravari soldier recorded his final log before disappearing. They come without sound. Their eyes glow in the dark. They do not die when shot. I think, this planet hates us. In the underground base, Reyes stood before his team. The dim lights flickered. Everyone looked exhausted, but alive. He looked at them, his face lit by the glow of the maps. They thought conquering Earth would be easy, he said. They never asked what Earth really is. It's a graveyard. A world where everything fights to live. A planet that kills its weak. He paused, his eyes cold. They've declared war on a deathworld. And the deathworld just declared war back. Outside, lightning split the clouds. Somewhere above, alien ships searched endlessly through the storms. And deep below, humanity sharpened its teeth. Because Earth wasn't just surviving anymore. It was hunting. The night was darker than usual, a heavy storm rolling over the Midwest, lightning flashing in the distance like silent explosions. Rain hissed as it hit broken concrete and twisted steel. The ruins of Chicago were nothing more than a scar on the earth, blackened skyscrapers, glassless windows, streets flooded with ash. Somewhere beneath that city of ghosts, the resistance was planning something impossible. In an underground train station, hundreds of survivors crowded around a holographic map flickering in the dim light. The air smelled of oil, sweat, and fear. Captain Reyes stood at the center, his jacket torn, his left arm bandaged. He looked tired, but his eyes were alive, sharp, relentless. Dr. Lin tapped the map. The Dravari command ship landed here, she said, zooming in on a sector near the old Navy pier. It's coordinating all operations in the North American zone. If we take it down. Reyes finished her sentence. We send a message to the whole damn galaxy. No one spoke. Everyone knew what that meant. The command ship was a fortress, a floating monster with shields strong enough to survive nuclear fire. Getting close was suicide. And yet, for the first time in months, hope flickered in the room. They began their mission at dawn. The storm had broken by morning, leaving a sky filled with thick clouds, perfect cover. Reyes led a team of 12. They wore mismatched gear, scavenged armor, alien visors, and weapons that hummed with unstable energy. Each of them carried something the Dravari couldn't understand: belief. They moved silently through the ruins, every step echoing between the skeletons of old buildings. Above, alien drones patrolled like silent hawks, red eyes sweeping the ground. Dr. Lin whispered through her earpiece, "Stay in the shadows. Their scanners can't penetrate deep heat pockets. The city's fires are masking us." Reyes smiled faintly. "Then let's give them more fire." They reached the pier by noon. The Dravari command ship loomed overhead, massive, almost alive. Its black hull pulsed with energy, reflecting lightning like veins of light across its surface. A fortress in the clouds, tethered to the ground by energy beams and landing struts thicker than buildings. Guard patrols marched below, tall, armored aliens with glowing eyes and rifles that could cut a man in half. Reyes raised his hand. No gunfire unless necessary. We're ghosts. They crept forward, using rubble as cover. At the base of the ship, a maintenance hatch blinked with green symbols, alien code, constantly shifting. Dr. Lin knelt beside it, pulling out a small device made from a Dravari data crystal and human circuit boards. Her hands shook slightly as she worked. "You sure this will work?" Reyes whispered. She didn't look up. "No." The device buzzed. Then clicked. The hatch opened. Inside, the ship felt wrong, too clean, too quiet. The walls pulsed faintly like veins, and the air had a low hum, almost like a heartbeat. The team split into pairs, moving through dim corridors. Reyes and Lin headed toward the command deck while others planted explosives near the power conduits. Every second felt like a countdown. Dravari voices echoed faintly through the ship's halls, cold, mechanical, inhuman. One patrol passed inches from Reyes. He held his breath, his hand gripping a knife. When the alien turned away, Reyes struck. Silent. Efficient. The Dravari fell without a sound. They moved on. At last, they reached the control core, a tall, glowing column of energy surrounded by alien consoles. Holographic maps showed the Earth from orbit, covered with Dravari strongholds, patrol routes, and human containment zones. Dr. Lin stared at it, her jaw tight. "They're cataloging us, like livestock." Reyes stepped forward and placed the explosives at the base of the core. "Not anymore." Then the alarms went off. The corridor behind them erupted in red light. Heavy footsteps thundered closer. The ship shook as plasma bolts tore through the walls. Reyes yelled, "Detonate and run." Lin hesitated. "If we blow it now, we'll never get out." He looked back, eyes hard. "Then at least the world will know we didn't die quiet." She nodded, tears mixing with sweat. "You're insane." Reyes grinned. "That's what makes us human." The explosion ripped through the ship like thunder. Fire burst from the hull, slicing the sky in half. The Dravari fortress began to collapse, energy flickering, shields failing. From miles away, survivors looked up from the ruins and saw something they hadn't seen in months, an alien ship falling. It struck the lake in a massive wave of fire and smoke. The blast shattered windows across the city. Everywhere, radios crackled to life. A voice came through the static. It was Reyes. "To any survivors, this is Captain Reyes. The Dravari bleed. They're not gods. They're just flesh and metal. Remember that." Static. Then, laughter. Across every hidden base, every resistance outpost, people laughed and cheered until their throats hurt. The impossible had happened. Humanity had struck back, and won. Up in orbit, Commander Zyreth watched the wreckage burn. His eyes narrowed, his claws slicing the armrest of his throne. "How?" he hissed. "How did they destroy a command vessel?" His advisor trembled. "Unknown, my lord. The humans." "Enough." Zyreth roared. "Find them. Find their leaders. Bring me their planet's heart." He stood before the massive window overlooking Earth, the blue sphere flickering with lightning. "They want war," he said softly. "Then we shall show them war." But deep in the shadows below, humanity was already preparing. For the first time, they had tasted victory. For the first time, the Dravari knew fear. And far beneath the ruined city, Captain Reyes whispered into the dark. "You thought we were prey. We're the predators now." The galaxy's most feared conquerors had never known silence. Every world they took screamed. Every enemy begged. But Earth. Earth had gone quiet. And silence, the Dravari learned, was far worse than resistance. After the destruction of the command ship over Chicago, the Dravari fleet pulled back into the upper atmosphere. The loss of a command vessel was supposed to be impossible. It wasn't just a tactical failure, it was humiliation. Commander Zyreth sat alone in his chamber aboard the flagship Dominator, his claws scratching deep lines into the polished metal table. The holographic image of the Earth floated before him, half covered in smoke, half alive with strange, shifting heat signatures. "Explain it," he said quietly. 3 of his officers stood trembling. One finally spoke. "It was sabotage, my lord. A human strike team breached the lower decks and detonated our own power core." Xyretha's crimson eyes narrowed. "A human strike team? You're telling me primitives on a dying world infiltrated a Dravari warship?" No one answered. He rose slowly, the lights glinting off his obsidian armor. "Find these humans. I want their corpses hanging from every city tower. I want their screams broadcast across their world." But the next week, Dravari patrols began vanishing. It started small. A scout squad in the ruins of Moscow stopped reporting. Then, a supply convoy in India. Then, a forward base in Australia. At first, they blamed faulty equipment. But when the patrol drones were recovered, their video feed showed only static, and a single word carved into the hulls of their transports: "Run." The humans had begun hunting back. In the jungles of South America, a Dravari commander named Vreth Kaur led a sweep operation. His troops moved through thick vines and mist, their scanners searching for heat signatures. The readings were strange, dozens of small signals moving fast around them. Too fast. "Hold formation." Vreth barked. Something moved in the trees above. A shadow. Then another. A plasma bolt flashed and missed. Screams echoed. One soldier fell. Another was pulled into the dark, vanishing with a crunch of armor. Vretha's translator caught the sound of human voices whispering through the rain. "Welcome to Earth." Seconds later, the entire patrol disappeared. When word of the jungle massacre reached Xyreth, he was silent for a long time. Finally, he turned to his science officer. "How are they doing this? Their numbers are few, their weapons inferior. How are they killing us?" The officer hesitated. "They are adapting, my lord. Learning our movements, using their planet's conditions against us. Their environment itself seems to favor them." Xyreth growled. "Then burn the environment." The Dravari began their scorched earth campaign. They set forests on fire from orbit, melted glacier, and bombarded mountains. They called it purification. But it didn't stop the humans. Because the humans weren't fighting for land, they were fighting for vengeance. And every fire, every bomb, every atrocity only made them fight harder. In New York, the resistance broadcasted their first hijacked transmission. Across every alien channel, every Dravari screen, a human face appeared, masked, shadowed, voice distorted. "You came here to conquer. You thought Earth would bow. You thought we were soft, civilized, weak. You were wrong. This planet has been killing us since the day we learned to crawl. We adapted. We endured. We became monsters. Welcome to the death world." Then the transmission cut off, replaced by coordinates that led the Dravari straight into a trap. 3 of their cruisers were destroyed by hidden railguns made from scavenged alien metal. The galaxy began to whisper. In the Dravari fleet, morale began to crack. Soldiers refused to leave their ships at night. Officers began locking doors to keep their troops from deserting. They spoke in low voices, terrified of a new rumor spreading through the ranks. They said the humans didn't die. That when shot, they kept moving. That their blood was acid. That they had learned to breathe the toxic air the Dravari used for purification. They began calling the humans by a new name. The Silent Ones. Commander Xyreth refused to believe it. "Superstition," he snarled. "Fear of shadows. Nothing more." But when his ship's medic reported a strange discovery, alien corpses that showed signs of extreme terror before death, as if they'd been hunted, even Xyreth felt a chill crawl through his veins. He went to the viewing deck, staring down at the blue world beneath. Lightning danced across the clouds. "What are you, humans?" he whispered. "What did this planet make of you?" No answer came, only the storm. That night, one of the Dravari fleet's orbital stations went silent. The last transmission was a garbled message. "They're inside. The humans are static." When Dravari ships arrived to investigate, they found the entire station's crew gone. No bodies. No survivors. Just one thing left behind on the command console, an Earth flag, burned around the edges, with 3 words scrawled in alien blood. We are coming. In the ruins below, Captain Reyes stood with Dr. Lin, watching the distant glow of alien ships retreating higher into orbit. They're scared, Lin whispered. They're actually scared. Reyes nodded slowly. Good. Let them be. He loaded his rifle, his face hard as stone. We've been prey long enough. Now, we hunt. Thunder rolled across the horizon. And for the first time in Dravari history, an enemy had made them afraid of the dark. Earth was burning, but for the first time in months, it wasn't burning alone. The resistance had evolved from scattered survivors into something far more dangerous. A unified species. From the frozen bunkers of Siberia to the deserts of Africa, from drowned coastlines to shattered megacities, humanity was no longer hiding. They were hunting, together. Commander Reyes stood in a ruined subway tunnel beneath what used to be New York. The tunnel walls were lined with screens powered by salvaged alien cores, displaying maps of orbiting ships, troop movements, and intercepted transmissions. Beside him, Dr. Lin adjusted her goggles and smiled grimly. Remember how they said humans couldn't reverse engineer their tech? Reyes raised an eyebrow. Yeah. She tapped a small cube glowing blue in her hands. They were wrong. The cube pulsed, and a holographic projection of a Dravari cruiser flickered above it. Lin swiped her hand through the air, and the ship's systems opened up like a dissected insect. Their power cores run on a crystalline fusion process. We figured out how to mimic it using silicon and trace elements from old nuclear plants. It's not as strong, but it works. Reyes grinned. You just made Earth a war factory. All across the planet, the human counterattack began. The first were the Ghost units, special operations teams armed with hybrid railguns and adaptive camo. They moved like shadows, their weapons leaving trails of superheated air as they tore through alien patrols. The second were the engineers, rebuilding tanks, drones, and ships from alien scrap. They called their creations Frankensteins. Ugly, mismatched, but deadly. And the third were hackers. In a world where the Dravari's every move relied on digital coordination, humans turned the very network against them. A cyber warfare team from Seoul called Phantom Grid hijacked the Dravari fleet's communication relays and fed them false data, fake coordinates, fake targets, even fake distress calls. Entire Dravari strike groups ended up attacking each other. The shift was subtle at first. A few alien patrols lost contact. Then an orbital strike hit the wrong coordinates. Then one of their dreadnoughts was ambushed mid-repair by human bombers made from scavenged alien fighters. By the time Commander Zyreth realized what was happening, humanity had taken back 20% of the surface. In orbit, aboard the flagship Dominator, Zyreth's fury was volcanic. You mean to tell me, primitive scavengers have hacked the Dravari war network? His chief engineer trembled. We underestimated their intelligence, my lord. They're unpredictable, adaptive. Unpredictable. Zyreth roared. They are chaos. Every tactic, every plan, they twist it against us. Even our own weapons turn traitor. His second-in-command spoke carefully. Perhaps we should request reinforcements from the High Council. Zyreth turned slowly, his glare sharp enough to slice steel. And admit that this world of savages is defeating the Dravari Dominion? Never. He clenched his fist, talons sparking. No more hesitation. No more holding back. Burn this planet to ash. But by then, the Dravari had already lost the initiative. Because humans had discovered something far more valuable than alien tech, they'd found the Dravari weakness. During a raid on a crashed enemy cruiser in Siberia, Dr. Lin's team uncovered strange data. The Dravari's neural implants, used for coordination and orders, could be disrupted by specific radio frequencies. To humans, it was just interference. To the Dravari, it was madness. They tested it on a captured soldier. Within seconds, the alien screamed and clawed at his head, collapsing as blood seeped from his ears. Neural overload, Lin whispered. We can scramble their entire command chain. The first neural pulse attack was launched over Paris. Human strike jets soared through burning clouds, their engines roaring. Each carried an experimental pulse generator, a weapon that looked more like a hacked radio tower than a bomb. As the devices detonated, the sky filled with a low, vibrating hum. Dravari ships began to veer off course. Troops dropped their weapons, staggering as their implants short-circuited. Some screamed. Others simply stopped moving. Within minutes, an entire alien division collapsed without a single bullet fired. Earth cheered. In the ruins below, Reyes stood on a balcony overlooking the flaming city, radio pressed to his ear. "This is Commander Reyes to all resistance cells. The neural pulse works. Repeat, it works. Push forward. Take back everything." The reply came through static and gunfire. "For Earth." The battle cry echoed across continents. Within weeks, the tide turned. Humanity retook London, then Moscow, then New Delhi. Each victory was broadcast across hijacked Dravari channels, humiliating their commanders. Zyreth watched in disbelief as his empire's greatest fleet was forced into retreat, by a species that, by all their science, should have been extinct by now. He stood before the window of his flagship, staring down at the battered planet below. Lightning flickered over the clouds. Cities burned, but the fires looked almost alive. "They were supposed to break," he whispered. "Instead, they became something else." He turned to his second-in-command. "Begin evacuation protocols. We regroup in orbit." "Evacuation, my lord?" the officer asked, horrified. "The Council will brand us as cowards." Zyreth's eyes burned like dying stars. "Cowards can live to fight again. The dead cannot." Down on Earth, Reyes looked to the sky. For the first time in months, the alien ships were moving away. "They're retreating," Lynn said quietly. Reyes exhaled slowly, disbelief mixing with grim satisfaction. "Yeah, but they'll be back." Lynn looked at him. "Then we'd better make sure next time we're ready." Reyes nodded. "No. Next time, we're coming for them." He raised his radio. "Humanity is no longer under occupation. We are the resistance no more. We are the reclamation." The world roared. In orbit, as the Dravari fleet limped toward deep space, one human transmission cut through their comms, overriding every channel. It was a single voice, distorted, calm, deadly. "This is Earth. You invaded our home. You tried to burn us. You failed. Next time, we bring the fire." The war for Earth was over. But for humanity, peace was not enough. The scars of invasion still burned, cities turned to glass, oceans poisoned, millions lost. And above it all, the Dravari fleet fled through the stars, regrouping, preparing for another strike. Humanity had learned one truth from the ashes. If they didn't hunt the enemy down, the enemy would return. So they decided to bring the war to the stars. In a massive underground hangar beneath the Rocky Mountains, lights flickered to life. Rows of colossal ships stood in silence, human designs fused with alien technology, powered by captured Dravari cores. They were faster, meaner, and far more unpredictable than anything the Dominion had ever seen. On the hull of the first ship, someone had spray-painted 2 words. "Vengeance Class." Commander Reyes walked along the steel catwalks, helmet in hand, as the engines of the Horizon Dawn thundered awake. "How long until we're space-ready?" he asked. Dr. Lin, now wearing the insignia of the New Earth Defense Fleet, smiled. "We've tested every system twice. We can reach low orbit in 8 minutes. After that, we chase them wherever they run." Reyes nodded. "Good. It's time they learned what it feels like to be invaded." The launch of the Horizon Dawn was witnessed across the planet. From the ruins of Tokyo to the deserts of Nevada, people looked to the sky and saw fire streak upward, humanity's first warship roaring into the void. Other ships followed, Hammerfall, Exodus, Blackstar, and Aegis Prime. Each carried hybrid rail cannons, plasma lancers, and neural pulse arrays capable of frying alien circuits across entire fleets. The message was clear. Earth had joined the stars, as a predator. Out in deep space, the Dravari regrouped near the shattered moon of Arcanis IV. Commander Zyreth stood before the star map, his claws tapping against the console. "They won't follow," he said bitterly. "They'll rebuild. Hide behind their atmosphere like all primitives do." But his officer looked uneasy. "My lord, Sensors detect human signals. Multiple. Approaching fast. Xyreth turned sharply. Impossible. Then the screen lit up, dozens of blue blips cutting across the void, heading straight for them. They are here, the officer whispered. The humans have come. The first human fleet engagement in galactic history began in silence. Then the stars erupted. Hundreds of plasma bolts streaked across the darkness. Alien cruisers moved to intercept, but the human ships were smaller, faster, darting between blasts, unleashing railgun slugs that tore through shields like paper. The Horizon Dawn flew at the center, leading the assault. Reyes sat in the command chair, eyes locked on the massive Dravari dreadnought ahead. Target their command ship. All guns, full power. The ship's rail cannons fired, and the void trembled. Dravari armor cracked under the assault. Neural pulse ready, Lin said. Shall we? Reyes grinned. Let's scramble their nightmares. The pulse rippled across space, invisible to the eye, but devastating in effect. Dravari ships began to spin out of control. Some collided with each other. Others fired on their own escorts, their pilots screaming as their implants melted their minds. They're tearing themselves apart, Lin whispered. Reyes watched the chaos unfold. Good. Saves us the ammo. Xyretha's ship shook violently as alarms screamed. Their interference fields are penetrating our systems, shouted an engineer. Counter with frequency dampeners. Xyreth barked. They've already adapted, my lord. Their weapons change modulation every. The console exploded in his face. Xyreth staggered, black smoke rising from his armor. He looked up at the viewscreen, and saw the Horizon Dawn charging straight toward him, guns blazing. Inside the human warship, Reyes's voice was calm but deadly. All batteries, concentrate fire. Let's end this. The railguns fired in synchronized bursts. Each shot cracked the Dravari flagship's armor, driving it backward into the orbiting debris of Arcanis 4. Then Reyes gave the final order. Fire the lance. A beam of concentrated plasma lanced through space, a searing white light that split the Dravari flagship in half. For the first time in history, a Dravari commander screamed in defeat. The explosion was visible from orbit. The human fleet cheered. Reyes didn't. He stared at the burning wreckage, voice low. That's for New York. For London. For every city they burned. Dr. Lin looked at him, her eyes reflecting the fire. And for every human who refused to die quietly. But amid the wreckage, one escape pod drifted into the shadows of a nearby moon. Inside, Xyreth crawled from the smoking pod, half his armor melted, one arm gone. He looked back at the stars, and for the first time, he felt something no Dravari had ever felt before. Fear. He activated his comm. This is Commander Xyreth, to all surviving Dominion fleets. The humans are coming. Static swallowed his words. Back aboard the Horizon Dawn, Reyes stood at the viewport, watching the glowing debris fade into starlight. We did it, Lin said softly. Reyes shook his head. No. This was just one fleet. They have an empire out there, hundreds of worlds. Lin smiled faintly. Then I guess we have work to do. Reyes turned, the stars reflecting in his eyes like fire. We survived their invasion. Now we start ours. The final transmission from Earth echoed across space, bouncing from satellite to satellite, carrying a message that every species in the galaxy would soon hear. To the stars beyond, this is humanity. We are not prey. We are not victims. We are the children of the Deathworld. And we are coming. The Dravari Dominion had ruled for centuries. Their fleets had crushed empires. Their armies had enslaved entire species. But now, their worlds were burning. It began with whispers. Dravari outposts near the rim reported strange disappearances, convoys vanishing without a trace, patrol ships found drifting and empty. Then came the footage. A grainy transmission, recovered from a dying scout ship. Black silhouettes emerging from the void, moving faster than anything the Dravari had ever seen. And in the background, through static and fire, a voice. We are the sons and daughters of Earth. You took our world. Now we take yours. Then the screen went dark. From that day, the war of reclamation began. Human fleets poured into Dravari space like a tidal wave of vengeance. Every ship carried a single white insignia on its hull, a skull made of stars. The Dravari called it the death mark. To humans, it was simply their reminder. Never again. In the war room aboard the Horizon Dawn, Commander Reyes watched a holographic map shimmer before him. Dozens of red enemy systems blinked out, one after another, as human fleets advanced. Dr. Lin joined him, her eyes wide. We've liberated 6 worlds in 4 months. Entire slave species are joining us now, the Narath, the Corran, even some Valians. Reyes nodded slowly. They used to fear us. Lin smirked. Now they want to fight beside us. The commander looked at the glowing stars on the map. Good. Because we're not stopping until the Dravari Empire is nothing but dust. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, on the Dravari capital world Vorthan Prime, panic spread like wildfire. The High Council, once the most feared rulers in the galaxy, now cowered in their crystal towers as reports flooded in. Our fleets have been annihilated in Sector 7. They've cracked the orbital shields of Jorath. How are they adapting so fast? They fight without rest, they don't retreat, they don't negotiate. One counselor slammed his fist against the table. They are death incarnate. You called their planet a death world, and now death itself is knocking on our gates. The others turned to the warlord who once led the invasion, Commander Zyreth, now a scarred and broken version of himself. You faced them before, the council hissed. How do we stop them? Zyreth looked up slowly, his single remaining eye glowing faintly. You don't. In orbit above Tehran, one of the last major Dravari strongholds, the stars burned. The human fleet arrived in perfect formation, hundreds of ships, from sleek stealth frigates to colossal dreadnoughts. Reyes stood on the command bridge, his voice calm. Target planetary defenses. No survivors. The order echoed through every ship. Moments later, the void erupted. Railguns fired. Plasma lances tore through the sky. The planet's surface split under the bombardment as alien fortresses turned to ash. From orbit, the bombardment looked like a storm of white fire, cold, relentless, merciless. The Dravari tried to fight back, launching interceptors and orbital cannons, but it was useless. Humanity had evolved their tactics beyond anything the Dominion had ever faced. They jammed every signal, cracked every defense, and hunted every last ship that dared to flee. By dawn, Tehran was gone. After the battle, Dr. Lin stood beside Reyes, looking down at the scorched world. We did what they did to us, she said softly. Destroyed cities. Wiped out lives. Reyes didn't answer right away. The reflection of burning continents flickered across his visor. They made this galaxy fear them. We'll make it remember us. Lin frowned. At what cost? Reyes turned to her, voice low but steady. Freedom has a cost. We're just making sure it's paid in full. As human fleets pressed deeper into Dravari space, something unexpected began to happen. The enslaved species, once terrified of both humans and the Dominion, began to rise. Revolts erupted across dozens of worlds. Slave armies overthrew their masters, chanting one name across every broadcast. Earth. To them, humanity wasn't just an army. It was a legend, proof that the undefeatable could bleed. On the Dravari homeworld, the High Council finally broke. Mass evacuations began. Millions fled into deep space, abandoning their cities as the human armada appeared in orbit. The once golden capital now trembled under the shadow of human warships. Reyes's voice echoed across every frequency. This is Commander Reyes of Earth. For centuries, you enslaved and slaughtered. Today, you answer for it. The final battle for Vorthan Prime was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Dravari threw everything they had, planetary cannons, orbital drones, suicide fleets. But the humans came prepared. They unleashed their newest weapon, the Pulse Array, a network of synchronized satellites that could shut down all Dravari technology in a star system within seconds. When it activated, every Dravari ship fell silent. And humanity descended. Ground forces stormed the capital, the night sky filled with streaks of fire. Reyes led the first landing unit himself, charging through burning streets with soldiers from 5 liberated races at his side. The city fell in hours. In the great council hall, Reyes found Xyreth waiting, broken, but still defiant. "You think this makes you heroes?" Xyreth rasped. "You've become the very monsters you fought." Reyes raised his weapon but didn't fire. "No," he said quietly. "We became survivors." Then he turned away. And survivors build empires. Behind him, the hall exploded in flames. As dawn rose over Vorthon Prime, the Dravari banners fell. The Dominion was gone. All across the galaxy, billions watched as humanity transmitted one final message. To every world that was chained, you are free. To every tyrant that remains, we are coming. This is not conquest. This is justice. And somewhere, beyond the edge of known space, the galaxy trembled. Because if one deathworld could do this, what would happen when humanity found others? The war was finished. The Dravari Dominion, the oldest and cruelest empire in the galaxy, was gone. Its fleets drifted as wrecks among the stars. Its worlds, once burning with pride and conquest, now lay silent. And in that silence, a new sound began to rise, the heartbeat of a new galaxy. It started on Vorthon Prime, the former Dravari capital, now under human control. The great black spires of the Dominion were torn down. In their place, new structures rose, not as symbols of domination, but of unity. Where once alien slaves bowed, now thousands stood together, Narath, Valians, Corran, and humans, rebuilding, side by side. Dr. Lin walked through the ruins with Commander Reyes, their boots crunching over broken glass. "We've done it," she whispered. "The galaxy is free." Reyes looked up at the alien sky, pale blue with twin suns burning over the horizon. "Free," he said quietly. "Maybe. But peace, that's harder." Lin smiled faintly. "We'll learn. We always do." The First Galactic Concord was formed 6 months later, an alliance of every liberated world. And at the heart of it, sitting in the central council seat, was Earth. They called the new capital Haven Station, built from the remains of Dravari dreadnoughts welded together into a ring city that orbited Vorthon Prime. From there, humanity sent a message across every star system. We are not conquerors. We are not gods. We are survivors, and this galaxy belongs to all who endure. Billions listened. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy was united, not by fear, but by respect. But even as the celebrations echoed across the stars, there were whispers. Stories spreading from one end of the galaxy to the other. Stories of a planet called Earth, a place so deadly it forged monsters in human shape. A place where life was war, and evolution was survival of the most relentless. To the newly freed races, Earth became a symbol of hope. To the remaining tyrants hiding in the shadows, it became a warning. They spoke the name in hushed tones. The Deathworlders. In the command chamber of the Horizon Dawn, Reyes stood before the window, watching the galaxy spin in slow motion. Behind him, Lin approached, holding a datapad. "Exploration teams are ready." The Council approved long-range expeditions beyond the rim. Reyes raised an eyebrow. "Already?" She smiled. "You didn't think humanity would stay still, did you?" Reyes chuckled softly. "No. I guess not." He turned to face her. "We fought for survival. We fought for freedom. What do we fight for now?" Lin looked out at the stars. "Now. We fight to understand." Years passed. Human ships became a common sight across the galaxy. They mapped wormholes, rebuilt shattered colonies, and helped unite dozens of species into the Concord. Children who had once hidden from alien warships now grew up among the stars, learning Dravari physics and human engineering in the same classrooms. The scars of war faded, but the legend of humanity only grew stronger. To many, humanity were heroes. To others, they were something more. In the far reaches of space, where new powers began to rise, alien warlords would whisper to their soldiers, "Remember what happened to the Dravari. Remember Earth." And that memory was enough to stop wars before they began. On the 10th anniversary of the war's end, a massive gathering was held aboard Haven Station. Representatives from every world attended. Holograms shimmered in the air, images of those who had fallen, both human and alien. Dr. Lin stepped onto the stage, her voice echoing across the chamber. "Once, we were alone, trapped on a single world, fighting only for survival. But when darkness came for us, we fought back. Not because we were fearless, but because we were human. The chamber was silent. She continued. Today, we stand together. Not as conquerors. Not as enemies. But as survivors of a galaxy reborn. The Deathworld gave us strength. And now, that strength belongs to all of us. Thunderous applause filled the hall, and somewhere deep in the crowd, Commander Reyes smiled for the first time in years. Later, as the celebration ended, he walked alone to a viewing deck overlooking the stars. The galaxy stretched out before him, infinite, untamed, alive. He remembered the day the sky burned over Earth. The screams, the fire, the hopelessness. And now, the same sky stretched across 1,000 worlds, bright, endless, full of promise. He spoke softly, almost to himself. We were supposed to die. But instead, we became something the universe will never forget. Lin's voice came from behind him. A legend. Reyes smiled. No, a warning. She laughed. Maybe both. They stood together in silence as the stars shimmered, and somewhere out there, a human exploration ship disappeared beyond known space, heading toward a new, uncharted galaxy. And in time, those explorers would find others, new empires, new species, new dangers. And when they asked where humanity came from, the answer would always be the same. We are from Earth. The Deathworld. The planet that even the stars feared to touch. The galaxy would change again. New wars would rise, new alliances would form. But one truth would remain eternal. When the galaxy called for help, when the darkness came again, every world would look to the stars and whisper one name. Not as a prayer, not as a hope, but as a promise. Send for the Deathworlders.